launched another revolt against Babylon, and an army was sent to conquer Jerusalem. 69. Second Revolt, 587/86 defeat. The route of the exiles to Babylon in 587 or 586 BCE. King Nebuchadnezzar II of Babylon conquered Jerusalem, destroyed the first temple and razed the city. 69. 75. 76. The kingdom of Judah was abolished, and many of its citizens were exiled to Babylon. The former territory of Judah became a Babylonian province called Ya'ad, with its center in Mizpah north of the destroyed Jerusalem. 75. Babylonian diaspora after 587/86 BCE. Tablets that describe King Jehoiachin's rations were found in the ruins of Babylon. He was eventually released by the Babylonians. According to both Bible and the Talmud, the Davidic dynasty continued as head of Babylonian Jewry, called the Rosh Galat, exilic or head of exile. Arab and Jewish sources show that the Rosh Galat continued to exist for another 1,500 years in what is now Iraq, ending in the 11th century. 77. Second Temple period. Persian period, 538-332 BCE. Obverse of Ya'ad silver coin, Dira, minted in the Persian province of Ya'ad, dated c. 375-332 BCE. Obv. Bearded head-wearing crown, possibly representing the Persian Great King. Rev. Falcon facing, head right, with wheels spread, Paleo-Hebrew to right. In 538 BCE, Cyrus the Great of the Achaemenid Empire conquered Babylon and took over its empire. Cyrus issued a proclamation granting religious freedom to all people subjugated by the Babylonians. See the Cyrus Cylinder. According to the Bible, Jewish exiles in Babylon, including 50,000 Judeans led by Zerubbabel, returned to Judah to build the temple in Jerusalem. The Second Temple was subsequently completed c. 515 BCE. 78. A second group of 5,000, led by Ezra and Nehemiah, returned to Judah in 456 BCE. The first was empowered by the Persian king to enforce religious rules. The second had the status of governor and a royal mission to restore the walls of the city. 79. The country remained a province of the Achaemenid Empire called Ya'ad until 332 BCE. The final text of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, is thought to have been written during the Persian period, probably 450-350 BCE. The text was formed by editing and unifying earlier texts. 80. The returning Israelites adopted an Aramaic script, also known as the Ashuri alphabet, which they brought back from Babylon. This is the current Hebrew script. The Hebrew calendar closely resembles the Babylonian calendar and probably dates from this period. 81. The Bible describes tension between the returnees, the elite of the First Temple period, 82, and those who had remained in Judah. 83. It is possible that the returnees, supported by the Persian monarchy, became large landholders at the expense of the people who had remained to work the land in Judah, whose opposition to the Second Temple would have reflected a fear that exclusion from the cult would deprive them of land rights. 82. Judah had become in practice a theocracy, ruled by hereditary high priests, 84, and a Persian-appointed governor, frequently Jewish, charged with keeping order and seeing that tribute was paid. 85. A Judean military garrison was placed by the Persians on Elephantine Island near Aswan in Egypt. In the early 20th century, 175 papyrus documents recording activity in this community were discovered, including the Passover papyrus, a letter instructing the garrison on how to correctly conduct the Passover feast. 86. Hellenistic period, 333-64 BCE. In 332 BCE, Alexander the Great of Macedon conquered the region as part of his campaign against the Persian Empire. After his death in 322 BCE, his generals divided the empire and Judea became a frontier region between the Seleucid Empire and Ptolemaic Kingdom in Egypt. 87. Following a century of Ptolemaic rule, Judea was conquered by the Seleucid Empire in 200 BCE at the Battle of Panium. Hellenistic rulers generally respected Jewish culture and protected Jewish institutions. 88, 89. Judea was ruled by the hereditary office of the High Priest of Israel as a Hellenistic vassal. 90. Nevertheless, the region underwent a process of Hellenization, which heightened tensions between Greeks, Hellenized Jews, and observant Jews. These tensions escalated into clashes involving a power struggle for the position of high priest and the character of the holy city of Jerusalem. 91. When Antiochus IV Epiphanes consecrated the temple, forbade Jewish practices, and forcibly imposed Hellenistic norms on the Jews, several centuries of religious tolerance under Hellenistic control came to an end. In 167 BCE, the Maccabean revolt erupted after Mattathias, a Jewish priest of Hasmonean lineage, killed a Hellenized Jew and a Seleucid official who participated in sacrifice to the Greek gods in Modi'in. His son Judas Maccabeus defeated the Seleucids in several battles, and in 164 BCE, he captured Jerusalem and restored temple worship, an event commemorated with Jewish festival of Hanukkah. 92, 93. After Judas' death, his brothers Jonathan Apphus and Simon Bassi were able to establish and consolidate a vassal Hasmonean state in Judea, capitalizing on the Seleucid Empire's decline as a result of internal instability and wars with the Parthians, and by forging ties with the rising Roman Republic. Hasmonean leader John Hyrcanus was able to gain independence, doubling Judea's territories. He took control of Idumea, where he converted the Edomites to Judaism, and invaded Scythopolis and Samaria, where he demolished the Samaritan temple. 94. Hyrcanus was also the first Hasmonean leader to mint coins. Under his sons, Kings Aristobulus I and Alexander Jannaeus, Hasmonean Judea became a kingdom, and its territories continued to expand, now also covering the coastal plain, Galilee and parts of the Transjordan. 95, 96, 7, 97. Some scholars argue that the Hasmonean dynasty also institutionalized the final Jewish biblical canon. 98. Under Hasmonean rule, the Pharisees, Sadducees and the mystic Essenes emerged as the principal Jewish social movements. The Pharisee sage Simeon ben Shetach is credited with establishing the first schools based around meeting houses. 99. This was a key step in the emergence of rabbinical Judaism. After Jannaeus' widow, Queen Salome Alexandra, died in 67 BCE, her sons Hyrcanus II and Aristobulus II engaged in a civil war over succession. The conflicting parties requested Pompey's assistance on their behalf, which paved the way for a Roman takeover of the kingdom. 100. Early Roman period, 64 BCE 2nd century CE. In 64 BCE the Roman general Pompey conquered Syria and intervened in the Hasmonean civil war in Jerusalem, restoring Hyrcanus II as high priest and making Judea a Roman vassal kingdom. During the siege of Alexandria in 47 BCE, the lives of Julius Caesar and his protege Cleopatra were saved by 3,000 Jewish troops sent by Hyrcanus II and commanded by Antipater, whose descendants Caesar made kings of Judea. 101, from 37 BCE. Portion of the Temple Scroll, one of the Dead Sea Scrolls written by the Essenisto 6 CE, the Herodian dynasty. Jewish Roman client kings of Edomite origin, descended from Antipater, ruled Judea. Herod the Great considerably enlarged the temple, see Herod's temple, making it one of the largest religious structures in the world. At this time, Jews formed as much as 10% of the population of the entire Roman Empire, with large communities in North Africa and Arabia. 102. Augustus made Judea Roman province in 6 CE, deposing the last Jewish king, Herod Archelaus, and appointing a Roman governor. There was a small revolt against Roman taxation led by Judas of Galilee, and over the next decade dissensions grew between the Greco-Roman and Judean populations centered on attempts to place effigies of Emperor Caligula in synagogues and in the Jewish temple. 103, 104, in 64 CE, the temple high priest Joshua ben Gun introduced a religious requirement for Jewish boys to learn to read from the age of 6. Over the next few hundred years this requirement became steadily more ingrained in Jewish tradition. 105. The latter part of the Second Temple period was marked by social unrest and religious turmoil, and messianic expectations filled the atmosphere. 106. Jewish-Roman Wars. The Arch of Titus in Rome depicts Roman triumph celebrating the fall of Jerusalem in 70 CE. In 66 CE, the First Jewish-Roman War, 66-73 CE, broke out due to the repressive rule of Roman governors, growing hostility between the wealthy nobles and the impoverished masses, clashes between Jews and pagans in mixed cities, and tensions between the Roman and Jewish religions. 107. The revolting Jews named their state Israel. 108. Despite early Jewish victories, the provisional government quickly collapsed, and Jews were split up into several warring factions with conflicting agendas. Eventually, the Roman army under the command of future emperors Vespasian and his son Titus besieged and destroyed the major Jewish strongholds one by one, including the cities of Yodfat, Gamla and the fortress of Masada. After a brutal 5-month siege in 70 CE, Jerusalem and the Second Temple were completely destroyed. 109. The revolt's failure had profound demographic, theological, political, and economic consequences. Many Jews did fighting and under siege during the revolt, and a sizable portion of the population was either expelled from the country or displaced. 110. Without the temple, Judaism had to change to ensure its survival. Judaism's temple-based sects, most notably the Sadducees, vanished. 111. The Pharisees, led by Yochanan ben Zakkai, obtained Roman permission to establish a school at Yavne. Their teachings became the foundational, liturgical, and ritualistic basis for Rabbinic Judaism, which eventually became the mainstream form of Judaism. 112, 113, 114, 115. From 115 to 117, tensions and attacks on Jews around the Roman Empire led to a massive Jewish uprising against Rome, known as the Kittos War. Jews in Libya, Egypt, Cyprus and Mesopotamia fought against Rome. This conflict was accompanied by large-scale massacres of both sides. Cyprus was so severely depopulated that new settlers were imported and Jews banned from living there. 116. In 132 CE, the Bar Kokhba revolt erupted. The uprising was led by a Jew named Simon Bar Kokhba, who ruled as Nazi, and was viewed by some of the rabbis of the period as the long-awaited Messiah. Based on the Bar Kokhba revolt coinage, the independent Jewish state was named Israel. 117. It has been suggested that a rabbinical assembly which convened during the revolt decided which books could be regarded as part of the Hebrew Bible. The Jewish Apocrypha and Christian books were excluded. 118. As a result, the original text of some Hebrew texts, including the books of Maccabees, were lost. Greek translations survived. A rabbi of this period, Simeon Bar Yochai, is regarded as the author of the Zohar, the foundational text for Kabbalistic thought. However, modern scholars believe it was written in medieval Spain. 119. Christians refused to participate in the revolt, and from this point the Jews regarded Christianity as a separate religion. 120. The Bar Kokhba revolt was eventually crushed by Emperor Hadrian himself, with serious losses. Today, it is viewed by modern scholars as having decisive historic importance. 8. According to Cassius Dio, writing in the century following the revolt, 50 of the Jews' most important outposts and 985 of their